Here we are, and I've got the famous, I am telling you right now, Adam Arens. He's the dealer principal for the Patriot Automotive Group, and it's certainly a pleasure to bring Adam Arens on with me. Live talk with Becky Chernek. So, yay. We've got you, Adam, and thank you so much. I know how busy you are, and getting you in here is not easy. And thank you again for accommodating me. It is very much appreciated. So, before we get started, guys, I've had oh my gosh, this online event, the F&I Master Series Forum, the Digital Age, and it was quite the show. And unfortunately, at the time, Adam was not available to help me kick it off, but he promises me the next online event, he'll be there to help me to kick this off. And, I got to say that that's terrific. Adam actually helped me to kick off two of our F&I roundtables before COVID. One was in the Atlanta, Georgia, and then the other one was in Baltimore at the Inner Harbor Marriott. So it was terrific. We love to have Adam. And so Adam has a very interesting background that I'm going to just go ahead and let him share. As far as I'm concerned, for me, I have been in the automotive retail space my entire life. And actually, I used to work with Adam Arens. So that was a terrific, fun experience in my career, and I learned a lot from Adam. He's very innovative, and I got to tell you, probably the most forward-thinking dealer that I think I know. So again, Adam, I put a lot on you, man. So we have some good people here tonight. I think I finally got this right, and we're going to go ahead and talk about, well, we have a couple of things to talk about. We're going to talk about this digital retailing. Is that like everything, engaging customers? How do you think about this whole thing, Adam?
Well, I mean, there's clearly lots of benefits to the customer and to the company. The question is it beneficial to the associates that work in the company? And so you have to create some path that allows that to happen. The fact is that there are a certain percentage of people, we have proof out there, especially in that used car space, and with Tesla, that'll buy a car without ever touching the car, ever seeing the car, and are happy to do it at their computer. That segment of the market continues to grow. And if it was 1% one year and 2% the next year, if it was presented in a public forum, it would say it's doubling year over year, and it may be, right? So we can't ignore it. My feelings are that people are getting very used to buying everything without interacting with a person. So we all have to be prepared for that to happen. But we also don't want to be the cause of that happening directly. At least in my case, I don't want to push people to not interact with my people. I still think that if you said everybody has to go buy a car today, that 85% of the people would engage with a human and less than 15% would not. So let's not ignore one side by focusing on the other. However, the people that deal with the customer now have to be better trained, better skill set, and better educated around the products that they sell than ever before. Because I call it my Best Buy story. Years ago, I went in to buy a TV at Best Buy. My intentions were to buy the TV. I walked up and there were two TVs, and I've told this story before. One's $599, the other's $499. They're both 50-inch TVs. So the guy in the blue shirt who was following me, I said, "Can you tell me the difference between these two TVs?" And his answer was, one's $599, the other's $499. And I said, "You can assume by the fact that I want to buy a TV that I'm not blind, because blind people don't really have to buy TVs."
That's right.
And that the one thing that I knew about those two TVs, he told me and told me nothing else. So I, like every other human being, still had the need for the TV. Some people would stop, but have the need for the TV. I went home, I went to my computer, I found out the differences between the two TVs and bought it from somebody who most likely didn't pay a commission. I struggle with that story because it happens in car dealerships now as well. So if you have high turnover, lots of rookies who are not trained or skilled or educated and knowledgeable, you're pushing a greater segment of the market towards that digital retailing space. And it also can happen in an F&I office. You know, if the only way that you're selling a service contract is it covers everything and it's only $31 a month, that's not enough anymore. Don't worry, it's included in your payment. That's not enough anymore. This is the benefit of it. This is the story that I have to tell. And by the way, selling is about telling stories. The people who are buying it on the internet don't get the story. Therefore, their price is going to be the number one thing that they face for the most part.
Well, first of all, I want to make sure I take care of our call outs tonight. We have Christine Farnan, and she's saying, "Hey, Becky, Adam, so glad I'm able to join you tonight." And I think she's on, Facebook. We have also Christine on LinkedIn, and she is so thankful that she can join in. Yay. And I have another Facebook user, just not sure who they are, who said hello. And of course, Larry, thank you so much for being on tonight. Marcy Darcy Sweeney, hello. And then, of course, we have Anthony Santangelo. Adam Arens is in the house. And yes, he certainly is. So thank you guys for being here. It's great. And I'm glad we finally have Adam Arens is in the house. And, we're talking about some of the stuff that I really think that there's got to be a balance when it comes to this digital retailing and how we engage with that customer. Now, you and I have talked about this for a long time. I met you when you hired me, you promoted me to this incredible AutoNation division in the mega stores many years ago. And what was ironic about this was, first of all, to get to that level, to even be considered, I can tell you how many times I had to do the AEP, Adam. I had to do a lot of AEPs, and I had to be really darn good in F&I, or I would have never, ever been considered to be able to sit in front of you to even be interviewed for this opportunity. Is that fair to say?
It is, but I think that the office has changed so dramatically, and there's a lot of things that used to be a must that aren't a must anymore, right? For instance, I think today that F&I holds a higher esteem and sometimes compensated position in the dealership than almost any other position in the dealership. I'm not telling you that's right. I'm just telling you that's a fact. And that people don't want to leave the F&I office to run a dealership, because in F&I, you basically have to manage yourself. And I'm not saying the compensation plans are out of whack. It just happens to be. And then along came front-end gross in the last year and a half, and things kind of got normal. But if it ever goes back to front-end gross evaporation, we're still going to have a lot of F&I managers making a lot more money than anybody else in the store, including general managers at times. So things have changed dramatically. Certainly, the acceptance of women in the F&I office has gone through the roof. That's a great thing. Promoters of that. And then again, I think the job has changed to where the customer's patience is totally different than it was. The salesperson's patience is totally different than it was. And I believe that we either have to get really quick at it or overstaff that department, or else we're going to lose customers, right? So if I can walk in and walk out in their mind, I'm going to show up with a check and sign the papers and I want to go. That includes everybody who's buying a car for somebody else, as well as some people who are buying cars for themselves, right? So we've all had that customer who's buying a car for their kid, and they've got 15 minutes to get in and get out. And
I'm not looking to cut you off. I apologize if it seems that way. Maybe I did. But are you saying to add more F&I people?
Absolutely.
I thought that's what I kind of almost I mean, I
Well,
thought I heard,
either
and
add
I
more
can
F&I
bet
people
that their
or have
F&I
more
people
people
here are
capable of
freaking
doing
out.
F&I,
I'm
right? So
sorry?
there's a whole myriad of solutions there, different at different stores. Some where the salespeople are doing F&I, and I'm not telling you that that's what to do. But however, how long would you wait to do paperwork when the car is ready? And in many cases, you're not even taking delivery of the car that day. Um, how long are you going to wait? And I know that you can watch even somebody who has no clue about what goes on in the world. If there's 3 lanes in the supermarket to get out of, everybody walks to the shortest line, right? And in the current situation, that means sometimes you don't have an opportunity to present features and benefits of your product that fit for the customer, and therefore they're going to just start writing checks. And we have one compelling thing in a new car dealership, and that is we have subvented rates even in this market, that continue to keep people doing business with us, and basically no outside lease sources. So on the new car side, we've got really good advantages. On the used car side, pre-owned car side, if it's certified, there may be some of those same advantages. But in a traditional good credit pre-owned car, how long are you going to wait? You know, you've been shopping for a car, you found it, you showed up, you drove the car, you liked the car, you agreed on numbers, and now you're going to wait an hour and a half to see somebody to sell you some product.
I
I
think
don't know that I'd be
efficiency
patient for that.
is key, to driving, obviously, performance, but you have a little you've got, I mean, some F&I people that have been in the trenches for a while, veterans, if you will, and they still don't get it where, "Hey, by the way, I'm doing a great job. I've got this. I'm making sure that I'm spending enough time with the customer to be able to sell those products."
Well, their pay plan doesn't usually have a clock on it,
No, it doesn't.
right?
Right.
So you'll get somebody, it's a Wednesday and you're in a 150 car store and you might only have one person who's got the job title of F&I, and you might only have 3 deliveries that day. That's the math. Well, they all can end up being there at the same time, requiring people to wait. There's a lot of deliveries at 5:30 in the afternoon or 6 o'clock when people come after work, etc. So we've got to make sure that we have no bottleneck, and that means more people doing F&I. And the reason I'm bringing it back to this is there's now sales managers who have never done F&I in dealerships all over the country. They're great closers, but they couldn't do the other part of the F&I job, which is, protecting the dealership, getting a fundable contract, doing everything right. So we've got to, in every store, have some solution that shortens the wait and shortens the amount of time that the client is in an F&I office. Because if you ask salespeople and you look at the surveys that you get back from the manufacturers, and every salesperson will tell you, if it weren't for F&I, I'd have almost perfect CSI,
Yeah,
KPI,
that's right.
OLP, etc. So at some point, we can't do without the revenue. So there's some big organizations that are making everybody an F&I person, and having a clerk to double check the paperwork.
Yeah, it's single. Yeah,
Um,
maybe a single point sales associate
you
type
might
thing.
you might have that, or at least I can't imagine having a sales manager who can't do F&I as a requirement of the job. But I'm going to tell you that my guess is out of 10 sales managers, 5 of them haven't done an F&I deal in the last year, and 7 of them haven't done an F&I deal where they made any gross in the last 5 years. And that's a lot, right? So how do you shorten the line is one of the things that we're working on, and there's many different ways to do it, and I'm learning from other people. I'm not at the single point of contact, honestly, because of documentation and bounce contracts, etc. But when do somebody buys a car over the internet and the car's not coming in for 4 weeks or 4 months? When do you present product? Those are
Well,
questions.
that's the question, right? So a lot of F&I people are very uncomfortable about that whole idea of being in front of the customer sooner rather than later, and thinking and letting customers think through that. Well, should I buy a product? Should I not buy a product? And wow, I don't know if I buy into that. We'll wait till the customer gets their way into the dealership, and Then we talk about those
I'm
products.
gonna spend 12 minutes with you, making sure we have the documentation right, so that when you do come back, everything's done and simple. And I'm also going to lock you in today's rates in a rising interest rate environment, or at today's lease program. So I need you to stay. While I'm paying cash, I still need to make sure that everything's right, so you don't have hassles getting your title or your plates. So at the point that they say yes, everybody should be presenting. At that point, and again, simplify your menu, be able to produce a menu within a minute or two of putting in the selling price, etc., and go over it. If they say no, you still don't have no forever. You still got another shot. But
Yeah.
if they come back in with a check, we've all seen how hard it is to sell somebody something when they come back in with a check.
Well, exactly. I mean, I've talked about that too. I mean, what are you going to do with the customer when they come in with a check made out for the exact amount, not too much? So why don't we go ahead, stop them, beforehand? Let's engage sooner rather than later.
Yeah,
And
and again, that word track I think that people should be using is, at least what we're teaching to our people to use is,
Mhm.
I want to make sure we have your paperwork right. So when your car comes in, you don't have to waste a lot of time here. I'm also going to lock you in at the lowest rates that I possibly can. If they go up, you'll be protected. And today's lease program, therefore, you won't face the fact that your car's not coming in this month and a bump to the lease program. So all that's going to be done today, as well as credit approval. So I'm going to need to spend at least 11 or 12 minutes with you. Most people take a little longer because they've got questions.
No, I think that that's a great track. So we have Steve Apicella here. His great question for you. Digital transformation, when it's done correctly, casts a wider net, removes long-standing pain points, ultimately strengthens the in-person connection before and after the sale. Lead on Adam Arens. Yay.
I think Steve is right. Again, the resistance to digital comes in both arenas. It comes internally within the company, and it comes from staffs losing confidence in their responsibility. So, when you start talking about things transparently, and there's never been a better time to do that than now, right? If you're selling cars at MSRP, customers aren't beating you up. They may be asking questions, but they're not beating you up. And you better be pretty good at whatever price you're selling cars at, because I don't think anybody's negotiating anymore. There may be a little negotiation in payment if you're trying to offer a base and protected payment, whatever it is that you're doing. But we believe in the disclosure. The one thing that we don't look at all is your credit. You tell us what your credit is, we'll give you rates that go at your credit. Once you've said yes, if it's lower because you underestimated your credit, fine. If it's higher because you've overestimated your credit, that's fine as well. We're not responsible for your credit or the interest rate. So
Wait a second. Wait a minute. Wait. Before you just go ahead and say that and just like go on to something different, because that's a wow moment. That is like, oh, wow, wait moment. So, what are you talking about? Are you talking about that your desk managers are going into the deal without doing a soft pull, anything? Are
correct.
you okay, so are you utilizing average rate factors? What are y'all doing? And I
So
know your desk managers submit deals to the bank.
we're penciling with disclosure of the rate at a rate. We expect the objection, right? So
So are you saying it's a higher subvent? I mean, what are you using?
we're showing an average
Rate
rate,
factor.
not an average rate, I'm sorry, a midpoint rate between the lowest and the highest. And then we teach our salespeople how to adjust
Okay.
that rate to conform to the customer's request, right? So they can adjust points, basis points without a problem. They can adjust term without a problem. They can adjust down payment without a problem. It's just math. And that's exactly what we tell the customer. At least what I perceive to want to have happen in my stores, based on the tenure of the people that we have, and everybody's been there a long time, is that you don't have to get up out of the seat because I'm an expert and I can finish this. By the way, if you're not, they're going to go to their computer or phone immediately anyway, right? So we can adjust rate. We can take it from, if the midpoint rate is 8.5%, then we can adjust it down from 0. We can adjust it up to 17, which is, obviously a wow thing for the customer. So because when they say, well, what would the payments be if I used my bank and it was 2.9%? No problem. I can do that for you right here. So
you
that's
have
part of being the expert in the room that is not telling you, well, I don't know, it'd be a lot lower. Ha ha ha. Right. Or, the last dealership told me I was going to get 17%. Here's what I'm going to do is I'm going to calculate it at 8.5. If your credit deems that it's going to be higher, then we'll calculate what it is. But I can show you what the payment is at 2%, 4%, 6%, 3%, any number that you want without a problem.
And okay, so then once we get some sort of a payment commitment, then you will dial you'll assure before that transaction makes their way into F&I. We've had a chance to validate that is a payment that you can achieve.
Oh yeah, first of all, we do have salespeople complete the credit app. I know that's a misnomer in the business where salespeople aren't allowed to do that. No, salespeople aren't allowed to lie or sign somebody's name. They're certainly allowed to fill out a credit app in handwriting that's legible or using the software.
So you are saying your store is okay in that the salesperson is filling out the credit application versus the customer filling it out.
Correct. Why would you ever ask the customer to fill it out?
Because it's in their own handwriting.
So what? They're going to sign it.
Yeah, there's something to be said about that, folks. So it's
listen. If you have a problem with people that work in your organization making up things, lying, or signing documents, that has nothing to do with the credit app. That has to do with a culture that says that's okay.
Okay. All right.
I can't imagine us retaining somebody who falsified information on a credit app. And so we ask the salespeople to ask the questions along the way and use it either digitally or by pen. It just depends on who they are.
Sure. Sure.
And then finally, we ask for an electronic or a wet signature on a credit app.
Okay. So, all right. So the idea is that you are inviting customers to. It's a price. Price isn't the issue. It's generally the vehicle is the price is the price. We're back to where it was with AutoNation, in my opinion.
Well, the price is the price.
I mean,
and
the price
math
was
is
the
the
price
math.
was back then. So it's like, okay, now we're talking. Okay, here's your trade-in value. It is what it is, and here's some payment options that would be available to you based on an average rate factor.
And there's no based on this interest rate, not
Well,
an average rate
is
factor.
it not based
on
off of
8%,
something?
based on an 8% rate, and that's not an average. That's the median between our high and a low in our market on a new car. Well, I've been told I qualify for, I've seen the 2.9. No problem. I can do the math at 2.9, 3.9, 4.9, whichever one you qualify for. We'll be happy to give it to you. The hiding things makes government get involved, right? And there is no doubt that people with marginal credit have paid a greater rate spread than people with good credit.
Amen. Yeah.
And there are certainly dealerships that are losing people with good credit unless there's a subvented interest rate out there to other sources. It's kind of weird though, since the shortage of cars, we're not getting checks from credit unions ever, right? That they've just disappeared, or somebody showing up with a check from their bank. When they're bringing in a check, it's usually a round number and it's for a down payment. So a lot of things have changed in we'll call it the 15 months where we got smart about gross on the front end, including an increase in the F&I product sales as well as the gross associated with it. And we're not seeing paperwork coming back because we're doing electronic contracting and presenting things on through an iPad or other device that allows the customer to click and all the math and all the paperwork comes out the right way.
So here's the thing. I mean, we've got to go through some of these questions for you. So I'm going to do that right now. We've got Fred Getter. Yay, Fred's here. Why open yourself up to that type of liability? Have the customer fill out the application. Then we have Vince Bailey. Having the integrity is not a commodity. Yeah, Vince Bailey is always here with me. Thank you, Vince. And then Katie, you know Katie, right? Be realistic with wait time for the F&I customer. Saying you're next, give me 5 more minutes is not helping the customer experience or process. Many customers follow the salesperson's lead. If sales stress, customers stress more. So I remember I'd go, the salesperson would be, Becky will be out there in a minute. And I'd jump out and I'm like, I'm not Wonder Woman, although sometimes I think I am. I can't do this in 1 minute, but I'll do it as quickly as I possibly can. So time expectation is very important.
Well, again, overstaffing is the key. You're better off having one extra person there every day than having one too few. It's hard if you've got a small store, but in our stores, we have enough people there. There used to be Saturday backlogs that were, we'd do 30 cars on a Saturday in a 250 car store, and the Saturday backlogs, and that would affect your F&I.
Yeah.
By the way, everybody should kind of be tracking their F&I numbers on ordered cars that come in, at least a week or so longer. We used to track F&I differentials on weekday deals versus Saturday deals. Saturdays were always the most profitable and the quickest deals.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody needs to wake up. It needs to happen fast, and it needs to happen quickly. And those are two different things. Fast to get to the customer, and quickly once you do get to the customer. We can certainly eat up 20 to 25 minutes as it relates to the cars getting ready. I'm going to go over the options that you have, as well as make sure your paperwork's right. And by the way, I've got a story to tell you. It's fine, right?
So I want to go back to what you said, because here's my thing on that. There are dealers that are certainly trying to wrap their brains around digital menu. Now, digital menu happened. Darwin's been out for a long time, for a while. You got DocuPad, you've got iTap. And the reality of it is, maybe it's just me, maybe it's my world, I don't know. Some of these guys have a hard time adapting to new change, and you can go in and here's a DocuPad. Dealers pay $14,000, I think now. And it's like, well, I'm still going to print a paper menu and present it to my customer. So
it's not about you.
You've got some challenges there with this.
No. Listen, it's not about you. It's about the customer. It's not about you. It's about the customer.
So what do you mean by that?
It's about the customer.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I say that is the customer is very good at using this or an iPad, and they're not handed sheets of paper in their life anymore at all as it relates to a buying experience. Their buying experience is touching the product or buying it digitally. And, I'm amazed that when COVID started, so whatever, we're 25 months into this, that dealers didn't have a digital retailing option when COVID started. And I almost find that hard to believe, because there was no reason not to. It's not an expensive thing. But if you don't want people to buy cars over the phone, if you don't want people to buy cars using their laptop and or phone, then you're going to be out of business. And now is the time to get out, because you can get a lot of money for your store, especially a poorly run one.
Exactly. Well, you would think, but so I don't know. I think the dealer is under the assumption that, okay, I'm signing up on this digital menu stuff. And Fred, you know what I'm talking about. Fred Gitter's here to talk through this, or at least back me up on this one. So a dealer, he does what they're supposed. He does the DocuPads. He's doing the digital menus. He's buying into this whole idea of efficiency, to cut through the BS, to cut through the red tape, to get through this, streamline this process, to get to this digital e-contracting, and making sure that we're not having to paper deliver someone if we don't have to. But I see this and I know how difficult it is in reality to really get there. For many F&I
Okay.
people, they
So,
are having difficulty with it. They're not doing it, and they're not.
okay, that's tolerance. How long are you going to tolerate it? At
Yes.
some point, these jobs that, and it's probably the wrong thing to talk about, that pay hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, don't mean you make the decisions about how we run our business. So I get funded immediately when I do an e-contract. People buy more, and it happens quickly, and you can hand them an iPad if you like. There was tolerance is the thing that bites you in the butt, and eventually might get you also sued because you don't have the same thing being presented to all the customers, at least in pricing. So if by nature you have a $5,000 cap on the back end and you're presenting a $49.95 service contract to somebody with bad credit, and you sell the same one for $1,300 to somebody with good credit, it's going to bite you in the ass.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it has to be different. And Fred also brought up something before that I saw in the notes. Shouldn't you be presenting 2% within?
Right here.
Fred,
Yeah.
Fred, I think it's really important to use the words that we use. It's the median between the high and the low. Most of our customers qualify for much less than this, and I can make the adjustments as you see fit. Right. So it's the median between the high and the low. Most of our customers qualify for lower, but I had somebody give me a hug the other day who was paying 13%, and I had somebody get mad at me who was paying 3%. So that was shouldn't you use a rate within 2% of your store average? Again,
I think where he's going with that is, I think the starting point, as long as you're not pulling credit too soon,
ever.
you're able, that's the ticket.
We don't pull
there.
credit until the deal gets turned down and doesn't come back tier 1 or tier 0.
So that's where you're able to do what you do. What happens is when the dealer is pulling credit too soon, then these margins start taking, then we have to be careful minded how we go about presenting that payment, and it's got to be within a certain markup.
Somebody walks in the store and says, I have bad credit. I need you to get me approved before I ever look at a car. We're going to go look at a car because it's a lot easier to get you approved on a car that you like, even easier to get you approved on a car that you love. If the math doesn't work on the car you love, we'll find a car you like. And then if it doesn't work on the car you like, we'll find one you have to tolerate for just a short period of time. That short period of time might be 2 or 3 years, but at least it'll get you to work tomorrow. Follow me, right? So you can do these types of things with salespeople who have tenure, who you train and you hold accountable for those things. Every salesperson knows how to cut interest rate.
Yeah.
Not many of them like to go up, right? And we'll also pencil our first pencils will be 15,000 mile leases, and then they'll say 15,000 mile lease on it. Mm-hmm. Then we can also adjust that down. In our case, either to 12 or to 10. In some cases, but so it takes training, and it takes holding people accountable, and it takes looking at that piece of paper that you sent out there. And I don't know that I'll still be on a piece of paper this time next year. I might be sending salespeople out with iPads to present.
I just think, and again, everybody's going to have their flavor, but I happen to do a lot of digging in the last couple months, and I've been speaking with a lot of innovative technology companies. I'm seeing a lot that I really, really like. I happen to like Prodigy. I think Prodigy is really digging deep, has the ability to work the desk and also connect online to in dealership. It's kind of, I like that model. I feel like it does, it's very
They're a digital retailing tool
between the two departments.
They're a digital retailing tool, not a CRM, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And then they also utilize, they also have like a menu type thing. But again, the Prodigy in of itself is really cool because it does align that online experience to what's taking place in the dealership. So it's like when the sales associate connects with that customer, they're able to pull exactly whatever terms a customer may have agreed to online. I think that is so important.
Yeah, and we've seen and used something like that through our digital retailing partners, vendors, whatever the case may be.
Mhm.
One thing that doesn't take place when you buy a tool, and that is that you don't make people use it. And when I'm talking about you making salespeople, F&I managers, desk people have to use those things so that they get better at it. You know, when somebody says, I don't like using a digital menu in F&I, after you do 200 of them, you tell me if you still don't like it. But that's the agreement.
Yeah.
And at the point when you do 200, so that's somewhere between 2 and 3 months worth of business. If you don't like it at that point, we'll either separate ways or you'll change my mind.
Well, you're open to at least having to change your mind. Some say this is the way we're going and this is the way we're going. I mean, this is what we're doing. And sometimes I don't know. I've never been able to say, I'm really good at what I do, but I'm going to do what I'm going to do and not going to do what you want to do, Adam. I never had to, I never had that
Just go back
ability to do
25
that.
years ago and telling people that you're doing a digital menu, which I had to tell you that you're
Oh, you
doing.
had to tell me we're going to do something completely different than you've ever done in your freaking life. And
And
I will never forget the time. I can see it just like it was yesterday. And you're sitting in the admin office at Becky, you're going to take that sale. You're taking that F&A person. Go ahead. Show them how it's done, Becky. You're going to go out to the kiosk in the middle of the showroom. Here's that 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper and you're going to show them how this is going to get done. I'm like, Tempe, Arizona. And I'm like, okay, Adam, I'm going to go do it. Scared the crap out of me. It was intimidating. You didn't have any walls. We're not beating customers up here, Becky. We're going to be upfront. This is how we're doing it. And I'll be a son of a bitch. Sorry. Speaking of bitch, I'll be a son of a gun. It worked. It
well,
was tough for 30 days, I'm telling you.
the question becomes, what are you afraid of, right?
Yes,
And
it's intimidating.
if it was, we'll age ourselves, but I mean, there were 24-month contracts when I first started in the car business. That was long-term
I don't know
finance,
if I had 24 months.
and then 36. And so things change, things evolve. And if you're not willing to grow, someday you will be a dinosaur. And the business is going to be different. There's going to be higher volume dealerships that put little ma and pop businesses out of business. Okay, Amazon is coming. Whether it's actually Amazon that comes into the car business in the next couple of years or not, Amazon is coming. The methodology of people buying cars through an Amazon and not caring where it comes from, just the fact that it shows up at their door in the next day or two with a trusted monthly payment that's fully disclosed is coming. They're going to offer you a service contract. They're going to offer you some other ancillary things, and you're not going to get pitched. Okay. And again, if it was 1% of the market last year and 2% this year, how long is the math if it doubles year over year until it's at 50%? And at what point does the lack of production of cars drive people out of business? Right. So, I mean, the weight that type of transaction is going to take place. I mean, Tesla sells every car without negotiating. Here's the price. We don't really want your trade. We don't even want your trade if it's a Tesla. So here's this guy. This is what I'll pay for it. But if you want to sell it on your own, it's fine. And put the margin back in the cars, which we've done, right? Mm-hmm. So we're at step one. We've put the margin back in cars. Step two is, okay, how do I make this work where people buy more than I have to sell them? And when I get a chance, we're going to move forward. And I think the best way for me to do this is with a digital division inside the dealership. Those are people who don't wait on customers inside the dealership other than handling deliveries and handle their digital space. And yes, they will handle the F&I part of the process as well. Not everybody.
So,
I'm not going to run off a 50 car a month person who sells cars to their friends. Listen, if you want to become a dinosaur, wait on the door to open and somebody to not ask for somebody. Right now, we are trying to get our sales team to engage in growing their own business, people who they can identify as being a friend and be their friend in the car business, and continue to grow that so that they can grow their model. The other model is going to grow on its own, and we're going to be there to support it, which is, I don't know anybody that at any dealership, I'm just going to buy a car and I'm not going to go in and I'm not going to drive it first.
so how many do you think customers are actually today? I mean, I know what they said back, I don't know, 3 years ago before COVID, that we still had a lot of customers just walking into a dealership to buy a car. They weren't really doing a lot of I mean, as much as we think that they were online shopping before they made their way into a dealership to buy a car. And I don't know. So maybe that was, I'm just trying to think, 2019.
If you're going to build your model around waiting for the dumbest person in the world to walk in, go ahead. I'm going to build my model around smart people.
See, that's good. That's good. I mean,
I
it
don't
really
know.
is. I mean,
I
I
think there
don't
are
know.
more
I'm
people
just
that have
like,
more
everybody's
access to
waiting
more.
for things to be the way that, that's they've always done it. It's like, well, this has been very successful for me, the way that I currently do things, and customers keep walking in. So why should I change? I'm making more money profit than I've ever made before, ever. Any of this stuff.
So let me go into something real quickly.
Okay.
Done this in sales meetings in my stores. I said, who's responsible for gross profit? And the sales staff and the managers all say, we are. And I said, well, you did a bad job for 50 years and you've done a great job for 15 months. Okay. You're not responsible for gross profit. The market is responsible for gross profit. It's allowed this to happen. Okay. Who's responsible for new car volume? We are. No, you're not. The manufacturer is. Right now, everybody's selling every single car that they get to a retailer, and I think right now we're at 15-day supply nationally. It's my assumption we're a little lower than that, and some imports are still a lot lower than that.
Yeah, with Subaru, I would imagine.
Yeah, and then finally I said, okay, so what you're really responsible for is customer satisfaction, repeat and referral business. That's the only thing you're responsible for. And the discipline that it takes to ask people and let people know that that's what you do, and be friendly enough and be smart enough to be able to handle their questions, even when it doesn't help you towards the sale of a car, right? Just be that person who people like and want to engage with it as it relates to the sale of a car. We'll have a digital division. It's not, or going to be people who are not like you, that are not magnanimous, that are not great at being experts. Right now, I think Carvana's numbers were 1.2% of all used cars sold in America.
Yeah.
That includes private sales.
So
they did over 500,000 cars. Even if the people were disappointed, and by the way, I think their market is bigger than that. In many cases, that market's not finding you unless you have the exact car that they want, and they'll give you one shot, and when you make it a hassle, they'll disappear. So it comes down to marketing what you do. And I can't imagine you telling somebody, hey, I'm the world's greatest car salesperson. I love my customers. My customers love me. Generally, somebody comes in on a Monday, they look at a car, they drive a car, they come back on a Tuesday and they start negotiating it. And on Wednesday, we take delivery. The average time they spend with me is 6 to 8 hours, and we have coffee and donuts. That's what's going on in car dealerships.
Yeah.
If you're going to market what really happens, then tell the truth. Now you have nothing to defend. Because I don't want to spend 6 or 8 hours with my car salesperson.
Yeah, right.
And by the way, I don't want to spend 2 hours with an F&I person or waiting for an F&I person sitting there while other people are going through. There's a guy by the name of Frank Pernitti, who I know your entire audience knows.
Yeah,
And he
Frank
said, I had a
Graniti.
customer, he sells 100 plus cars a month.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm sitting next to a salesperson and they're at another desk. And the salesperson sitting at their desk says, as soon as that person leaves your desk, I'm going over there. And he said, well, why are you going to do that? He said, well, you've sold 4 cars. Well, this guy can't get me through the sale of 1. Frank has his own F&I manager.
Yes.
How long do you think Frank tolerates people waiting when he's doing a 10-car Saturday on his own?
Probably doesn't wait too long.
Correct. So if the only thing that anybody gets out of this in leadership is to get faster and quicker both, and to staff heavier in the checkout lane, because that's where the cash register is, then let's do that and then get better at it. So there are tools that'll make you faster, but nothing will make you faster if you don't want to be faster.
Well, I think that starts from the top, and what they and what we talked about earlier, what they really are going to tolerate. So the reason why I say that, I can't begin to tell you. And I feel like, and whether or not you do or not, I feel like if we are on top of it sooner, rather, making sure that the transaction is complete, it's solid, it's validated prior to it getting into the F&I office, is definitely going to speed up the delivery process, rather than not validating it. Customer gets into this F&I office, and next thing you know, it's going to take a while and then some to be able to validate this information to go ahead and get into this presentation.
Well, luckily you're a few states away, because you'll probably punch me in the nose. The problems that you're trying to solve are not problems of F&I, they're problems of leadership tolerance. Is saying, oh, they produce $1,800 a car, $2,200 a car, or $4,000 a car. Numbers that I hear out there, I don't have that issue, so I have to tolerate it. No, you do not. People who are talented will get better if you force them to get better. We have salespeople now who are selling 50, 60 cars a month who used to sell 20, because we help them get better. And somebody says, well, I can't work 3 customers at the same time. You don't have to. But I do know this: if you go into a restaurant, that a waiter doesn't have 1 table.
Amen.
They have
Got to work our tables. We got
tables.
If you're in the weeds.
Yeah, no, a good waiter can have 6 tables and have different people on different places, but everybody knows that he's servicing them or she's servicing them to a great experience, not to the best of his ability. That doesn't matter. To a great experience, and then you'll come back and you'll ask for them. I mean, we all know these places where you go and you're going to ask for a specific waiter, right? I wish I could ask for a specific pilot when I get on a plane, right?
Yeah, right.
So that's the level that you're trying to go to. And because somebody in the organization says, I don't want to do that, isn't the reason to stop. Serve the customer the way the customer wants to be served, or somebody else will. And in this case, it'll be somebody who's doing it more efficiently than you're doing it as well, right? So maybe their margins won't be the same as yours, but they're focused on efficiency. So they've lowered their recon costs, they've lowered their time it takes to get a car to market, they've lowered their expenses around a lot of things, and maybe they've even lowered the commissions through the organization, but they have people doing more and making more because they're doing more.
Okay. I agree, because I had Dora Musi and Brian Kramer, and I've had Dora Musi as the F&I manager, and Brian Kramer, as you well know, GM over at Germain Toyota Lincoln in Naples, Florida, of all things. God bless him. So, he took advantage of a good situation. COVID hit. He's like, I'm going all digital. I'm going to make this thing happen. I'm going to make this a whole heck of a lot more efficient. And he does. And he creates an environment that really helped to make things a whole heck of a lot more efficient. And Ev and I was like freaking out. He probably lost a few along the way. And he had this saying about, okay, the ships, there's no other ships in this harbor, right? That saying. You probably can respect that saying, I'm sure. And talking to Doris, she was like, Becky, I was freaking, I mean, I felt I could feel it because I was there. I'm like, I know what it feels like when things are changing all around you. But yet today, she wouldn't do it any different. And she said, had it not have been for Brian saying, this is how we're doing it, or I guess you can't be here. Again, I want you to be here, but this is how we're going to do it.
Well, yeah, nobody's going to stop progress. There are going to be some people that that wait to see how it works, and there'll be some people that pull against it. The people that are pulling in the other direction have to be gone. And that doesn't mean we're not going to help them get a job someplace else, right? So Brian made those decisions, and he'll tell you he's nowhere near where he wants to be in the Lincoln store.
Oh, no,
Because
he's having he's getting a reminder.
right. In
What
the
it's like
Toyota
in the real
store,
world.
yeah, I mean, Toyota store, he had the support of SET, he had the support of the organization. The Lincoln store, a little different, and the Lincoln customer might be a little different. They're not going to be in the long run, but today they are.
It's not even the Lincoln customer, it's their mindset, it's the culture of the store. I mean,
Right.
they've been doing things for such a long time, and I can tell you how many times I've been in a store and the guy would say, "Well, let me tell you, if you were in my underwear for 25 years," and I'm like, "Well, sir, first of all, that's not going to happen." Not going to happen.
Robert Moy was asking a question about investing on their salespeople to generate their own opportunities.
Yes.
Robert, and I 1000% agree. The amazing thing is you can watch salespeople grow their own block of business, teach all of them the same thing, and only 25 or 30% of the people grasp it, and maybe even 10%. Don't stop doing that, because the people that have built the path to just incredible results. And when you look at a salesperson, you say, well, you've been selling cars for 20 years. And he says, yeah, and I sold, 900 cars last year. Or I sold 600 cars last year. Why don't you sell more? That's where I want to be, 50 cars a month. And they're making close to $500,000 a year. That's not a bad thing. And they get to go home at 5 o'clock, right? From now on, I want my salespeople, and I say this to every one of them, to never look at the front door, ever, and figure out how they're going to bring customers in. And the reason I'm selling you a car, Becky, is because I want to be the car person in your family's life. So even if they're looking for something that I don't sell, that's great. I'd be happy to help them. But of the list of the people that in your life, how many of them would enjoy the experience that you and I had in making this fast and efficient? All of them. Great. I'm going to do a little video. First, we're going to do it on my Facebook. Then we're going to do it on your Facebook. Yours is going to look professional because it's going to be the second time you did it. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, and you just have to be out there and remind people. And by the way, tell people what your goals are. Some of them will help you get there. And that's where you get that self-generated business. And show up. So, I mean, it's a multi-pronged. It's a use of video, it's asking, and it's being a part of the community. If you're going to stay in one place, you should invest in the community and be known as who you are in that community. And that's the thing that people don't do, even when they know how. So don't forget that people know how to do the things you ask them to do. They just don't do them because you let them not do it. And that's the way the world is. So
we have Katie. Katie here is saying leadership is key, holding leadership accountable to hold the team accountable, and then the numbers won't lie to prove results.
And it's a fact. I mean, Katie's right there. But also understand that everybody doesn't have to be doing the same thing to be rowing in the right direction, right? So we've built a culture around retaining our people, and we do a lot of things to do that. We are overly tolerant. I've used that word here a few times tonight. We take care of them and we build on them, and we reward them for doing the things that we want them to do. It's a lot easier to be a credible expert in the car business when you've actually been in the car business for a little while. And and I'll get to maybe the last thing we talk about tonight is when you're replacing people, you're replacing them with the same thing that you just threw out. You got to stop that. Salespeople should never be interviewed by sales managers. They don't know how to hire, they know how to close. So find somebody else in your organization to do that. And people think when they tell somebody something that they learned it. The only time learning occurs is when somebody else can do something different as a result of being in the room with you.
Yeah. So here comes Stephen Apicel. Burn all the ships, the processes, and the hardware. Thank you, Stephen. He's
Burn the boats.
there.
Go
You
all
go.
in. Cortez.
So that limiter create a fallback position to successful digital transformation. Basically, commit to evolving beyond the status quo. There's no try. Also known as leadership. Amen to that. Right. And amen to what you were also sharing, and it really is about taking ownership of that individual that you hire. One of the things that you and I have talked about before, conversations, F&I today, whatever, is the fact, and I thought it was very unique in that when you make a hiring decision, you make them accountable to that hiring decision because turnover kills.
There
Right?
should be no turnover in this business. There should be growth and there should be no turnover. You have to understand who you are, what you are, and continue to grow, and stop making mistakes of bringing people in and then letting them disappear because you ignore them. The problem of turnover in the car business is you hire 3 people. 3 months ago, you hired 3 people. None of them are there. 3 months before that, you hired 3 people. Nobody's there. So what happens when the existing staff sees the 3 people? They say, I'm not going to invest any time with these people because they're not going to be here anyway.
Yeah. It's a 30, 60, 90-day deal.
Yeah, goodbye. Have a nice day.
We just thought, yeah.
Oh, and by the way, stop flooding the floor, right? I mean, I absolutely want everybody to flood the floor as it relates to their F&I team. Add extra people. Then the person who's holding you hostage can decide if they want to do it the way the team's doing it or not. So I say that with love. Becky, you run into problems of people that leadership is willing to tolerate.
I see it a lot. I mean, Adam, I'll be honest with you, I do. And it just floors me that this is allowed to continue. And I'm thinking, who's running what? Right. And it's a shame because they're not getting what they need to get, but they do it all the time.
If you're a salesperson and your customer has to wait for 2 hours to get into F&I, would you continue to work there?
Probably no, especially if my livelihood, my everything else, my bonuses and everything else rely on that. No,
it's just once a customer says yes, salespeople run out of things to say. We all know that. They can go over the car, but they've run out of things to say. It's the reason we have delivery people that are not salespeople. It's so that somebody can go over the car in detail so that the salesperson doesn't have to sit there and say, well, I already showed them the radio. I already showed them the interface. I already hooked up their phone. No, you didn't. Okay. Because people want more information, and it may not be that day, but it could be in another day or 2. But the reality is that if your F&I process takes longer than 15 minutes to engage the customer and takes longer than 15 minutes to deliver the menu and longer than 10 minutes to do the paperwork, you've got a problem that needs to be changed. And it has to be changed. Or
that is just a big, big, big statement because they're not doing it. Maybe in your store, they're doing it. In stores that I'm in,
at some point you have, like
Steve said, man. They're just not doing it. They're just like, no. I mean, they see it, they understand it, but it's just not happening. It just isn't.
The things that you're doing that make you successful today will be completely different as it relates to processes if you doubled your business. So why aren't you doing it? Why aren't you changing your processes so you can double your business? There will be available cars at some point. There's certainly available used cars. And I think that a good F&I manager, if they get in front of a customer, can do X number and actually do Y number if they get them in and out faster. So, and Y is what I'm looking for. So With
So
that,
we
I
got
know
Robert Moore, real quick. At the first dealership I was hired in 1986, I was one of the 10 people hired. I was the only one that stayed with the dealership for 14 years until he bought one, until it got bought out. I quickly realized not to get too friendly with the new salespeople until he or she stayed more than 2 months. Sad but true.
Yeah, for sure, right? I mean, they're not going to be there, and they're going to borrow money from you. So um, we don't allow that either. I
Yeah,
know
we
we've
don't
used
allow
up our
no
hour,
borrowing.
and I
Yeah,
apologize if we didn't get to some of the things
yeah, yeah.
that you wanted to, but at least from my perspective, I will continue to spread the word of retention of your people and making them better, tolerance of bad things is a downfall of leadership, and inflexibility to change. Listen, if you asked me how to make a video on TikTok, um, I wouldn't know the answer. But that doesn't mean my store doesn't have to make videos on TikTok and exploit that social media. At the only cost in all of those things is effort. It doesn't cost any money to do that stuff. So you don't have to know everything. You just have to have people there that do, and just keep pushing. We do a thing that is uncomfortable for our people, and that is we look at different technology. So somebody says, well, I got the greatest thing in digital retailing. I said, well, we're not looking at another digital retailing presentation until October of next year. This is what we're looking at in May. This is what we're looking at in August. This is what we're looking at in October. And we skip a month and we look at a few different ones. Currently, hopefully you have a big audience. I'm looking at some CRMs to replace the current CRM, because the dream of Cox Automotive being able to do everything better for everybody has become a nightmare in my life. So I think there's much better CRMs out there now that use a lot more AI and integrate video, and that's what we're looking at. That's the current hot button for us. We have used multiple digital retailing, and we do use Darwin in our F&I office.
Yeah.
And I know we're 100% using Darwin, because it's impossible not to.
Okay. I remember what it was like for me. I'm just kind of reminding you. I remember the days when Becky, are you sure everyone's using that menu? Are you sure they're filling it out? What makes you think you know that I'm like, they are. When's the last time you audited your deals?
Yes. Well, we started with staple the menu to the outside of the deal and have a signature from the customer. And then we take the menu and the contract. This
I'm
was
just
back
telling you,
before
kid.
e-contracts.
Yeah.
They didn't match, you didn't get paid.
Becky, when's the last time you checked? When's the last time you audited those menus? I remember that like it was yesterday. But I know we got to close. And I do want to thank everyone for being here. It has been a pleasure to have you as well, Adam. Hopefully I can get you back, because I'm telling you, one day, I don't know. I know you're a busy man. I know
Well,
you're like all over the.
now listen, there's a lot of things that people are doing better than me and my organization. The one thing I don't think they're doing any better than us is loving our people and holding on to our people. That gives us obstacles to change that slow us down a little bit. But I just here to tell you that it works. We've had continuous growth in our organizations, and we get a lot of awards for all elements. But we have an organization that grows that way, and we're not spending time hiring people and onboarding people at all. That is, the story is, if you did it well before, you wouldn't be doing it again today. So
I do love that. I do like the fact of how, I mean, you go out of your way, and I really am going to find that YouTube video that you created about 8 months ago, I think. I want to be able to take a look at that. My understanding, it is really dynamic in how you onboard, attract, train, and retain. What is the roadmap in bringing really good talent people to your store? And I think you took the time to do that. And
the last thing I'll tell you is that as an F&I manager, if you haven't done any real training with your sales staff lately, that's on you.
Mm.
I'll give you some easy topics to cover with them. One of them is adjusting payments using interest rates. But this week, me, will be training every one of our salespeople on how to hand calculate a lease. And everybody's like, why would you ever do that? I said, because they'll be educated on how a lease really works by hand calculating a lease and doing a lease worksheet by hand. Right.
Mhm.
So if somebody's been in the car business for 10 years and you say, well, how does a lease work? And they say, well, you pay for the portion of the car that you use. That's not the truth.
You're right. Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it gives you a lower payment. You get more car. That might be the truth, but that's not how a lease works. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well, I just know one thing. I did a class on F&I fundamentals for NCM Institute, and I'm like, okay, guys, here's what we got to do. We've got to figure out a lease by hand. And I will tell you, I wasn't well thought of. It was like, I can't believe she's making us do this exercise. And I'm like, if you know how to do a lease by hand, you'll get it.
well, and you can explain it to the customer of how it works, right? So
Exactly.
there's in its
They
simplest
didn't care for
form.
me too much. They didn't. In fact, I got a bad write-up because of it. But I'll tell you
Because
right
you
now,
cause them to learn,
I caused them to learn. That's right.
right?
And they weren't happy about it.
Entertainment pays a lot more money than teaching. I'll
I'm
just
like,
tell you
guys,
that.
we got to learn something like that. So it turned out that it was maybe a month or two down the road. And one of the participants contacted me and said, thank God you did that. And I'm like, why? Well, because our computer wasn't working and I had to do this by hand. And thank God I went into my notes and everything was there. And you really helped me out. I really couldn't. I was so thankful.
So when the customer asks the salesperson how a lease works, if they say to him, well, there's two things that make up one monthly payment, right? There's the depreciation, it's divided evenly by month, and then there's a finance charge for the money that you borrow. You combine those two things, add the taxes, and then you have a monthly payment. What you're telling the customer is that you're an expert on this stuff, and they're stop objecting to all the other stuff. They're dealing with somebody who's an expert. That's what they're looking for. When your doctor says, go do this, hopefully you do it. I want you to be at that level. And if you're going to be a professional in the car business, you should be able to do that and have some fun. By the way, you want to do yours by hand? No, I'm good. Right? It's really that simple. So,
Well, I think one thing, and I know we got to cut this, but I got to tell you, I just am floored about the idea behind training up our staff, not just about product knowledge so much, but the process, what's taking place in this F&I role to have a better understanding what's happening to that customer once they get into the F&I office, what your expectations are, what's happening with that. And I'm going to just say this, a lot of consumer advocates don't agree with you. They don't agree with me. They feel like too much information is not a good thing. Don't do it. In fact, training salespeople today is very difficult if you can do it at all, and also that they'll give up the farm. Just saying. So
if you have new salespeople who don't know what to do and they're not going to be around in 6 months, why would you train them? That's the one aspect. And the other side is I'm being held hostage by these guys who've been here for a long time, and they give everything away anyway. It used to be about greed, and I think a lot of dealerships are managed through that thing called greed. But I think what it's really about for people now is doing well, taking care of their family, and having a place that they can go to work at tomorrow where they don't steal from people, where they don't do the wrong thing. We could get into this, and I'm not going to, but if your salespeople can't figure out how their pay plan works, it's because you guys are intentionally taking money from them.
God, I hope not, because here's the thing. I had I had salespeople that have wanted to get into F&I. So part of my interview process is, tell me what your pay plan is. How do you get paid? And when they can't tell me how they get paid, I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't do this with you. Because that is to me a criteria. Because if you don't know how you get paid, how do you perform? How are you keeping up with your performance. How do you do that without knowing how you get compensated? Sorry, I just don't buy into that one.
Well, I certainly would endorse dealerships giving financial education, not F&I education per se, to every associate there. Everybody's
Amen.
making more money than they've ever made. Everybody's paying more taxes than they've ever made, and nobody's saving more than they've ever saved. And not
Yeah.
nobody. Many people are not. So that could be on the sheet. I apologize. I have to go. I love doing this with you, and thank you for forcing me into it.
Well, I always have to force you into, that because I knew it's going to take a while to go ahead and make this thing happen. But guys, I want to thank you very much for being here tonight with me. And thank God, I think LinkedIn didn't freeze on us tonight, Adam. So this is a calling. This is good. This is a good omen. So I'm liking every minute of it. So guys, thank you again. I appreciate. Let me get rid of that. Thank you again. And I'll go here and we'll take care of this. And here